Please note that listeners may find some of this content in this episode upsetting or distressing. If you would like to access support relating to the topic discussed, please get in touch with our team. All of our contact details can be found at www.healthwatchessex.org.uk.
Welcome to Hidden Voices, the podcast series which explores the less heard voices in health and social care. I'm Sharon and I work for Healthwatch Essex. It's our job to make sure that people's experiences help to improve health and social care services. In this episode, we're talking to Mary, who I met recently at an event in West Essex. Mary is a volunteer for a meningitis charity, but her volunteering started due to a very personal experience in your own family. Isn't that right, Mary?
That's right.
Please tell us a little bit about that.
In October 2008, my granddaughter Maisie was 8 months old, the light of our lives. She woke up one morning. She wasn't quite right. Mum and Dad looked at her and said, "There's something not quite right here," because she slept all night. She was one of these really good babies, and she was always very hungry when she woke up, but she would only take water. They rang 911, and the nurse spoke to a doctor and said, "You better take her to the hospital straight away." She arrived at the hospital. They kept her to midday, sent her home, saying all she had was a mild virus. Later that afternoon, as her temperature had risen and she was quite lethargic, they called for an ambulance. They took her to another hospital. She arrived there about 4:30, and at 6 o'clock they diagnosed bacterial meningitis. The doctors put her on lots of drips, and we were allowed to kiss her, we were allowed to touch her. And the main doctor came out and he said, "I promise you now that we're going to get her into Great Ormond Street, and it will be no later than 9 o'clock.
Did your family at this point have much of an understanding of what meningitis was?
I did. I remember when I was standing by Maisie's bed, and there were 3 doctors opposite me, looking at one of the doctors and asking, "Is this bacterial or viral?" And the doctor said to me, "It's bacterial," and I knew it was serious. I think this came from my childhood, where a young boy I knew, he was a friend, he died of meningitis when he was 15, and it always stayed with me. And I think I must have picked up things as life goes on and you hear different things about meningitis. I was aware, Hannah and Paul were aware, my husband was aware of meningitis, but I don't know if they knew the difference between the bacterial and the viral.
Hannah and Paul are Maisie's mum and dad, and Hannah's your daughter.
Yes, that's right. At 20 to 9 that evening, a CATS ambulance arrived. It's a Child Acute Transport Service. And when it arrived, it looks like, the inside looks like a cockpit of a plane. And the 3 medics that came with it were a doctor, a nurse, and a guy dressed in black who drove it. And he was like the mechanic. He helped attach all the tubes from what Maisie had on in the hospital and what happened. He put her in.
The technician person.
Yes, technician.
Yeah.
But at this point, we didn't think we were in danger. This was the point. We didn't think, we knew it was serious. We knew she needed to go to a hospital where they could look after her. Paul's mum and dad were there. Paul's sister was there. Hannah's brother, he wasn't there. He was up in the city waiting to find out exactly where she was going and what time. And of course, I was there with Maisie's granddad, and she left at 11 o'clock. It took them an hour and a half to get everything sorted.
She went with mum and dad?
She went with mum and dad. She was allowed to go in the ambulance. We were all sent home. I was sent home with a list to take up to the hospital the next day. Paul's asthma pump, change of clothes for Hannah and Paul, things for Maisie. And it was surreal. You were in the middle of this thing that nobody you know's been through, and you didn't know what to expect. All you did was hang on to what the nurses and the doctors told you.
And hard for your family in many respects, being split up at that point.
Yes. Paul's mum and dad went home separately. Howard and I went home, and Matthew stayed up in the city.
Matthew's your other son.
Yeah, Hannah's brother and Maisie's uncle. He waited there for a long while. He waited till about 1 o'clock in the morning because he was waiting for her at the wrong side of Great Ormond Street, so he didn't see her come in. But we all went home, and you wake up. I woke up in the morning, and then I woke up with a jolt. You realise it when you first wake up. You just wake up, and then all of a sudden you realise what's happened. So we all went to Great Ormond Street. I told my husband to go to work because he would be there in the city the minute Hannah called if we could go and see Maisie.
And had any of you had any conversation with Hannah overnight?
No, we didn't, because we went home. We knew that she would be with Maisie. You don't think of that. That is something you don't think of. You just know that in the morning you're going to call her. So I went up to get this bag ready for her, and I remember calling her and saying, I've got everything. I said, Daddy's very near you. Matthew is also very near you. So if you need us quickly, they will be there, and I will be along as soon as I can.
And what an incredibly difficult time for Hannah.
And she said, Maisie, not very good this morning. And I said, she will be worse in the morning, but she'll pick up as the day goes on. I just couldn't think straight. I got to Great Ormond Street, and Howard and Matthew were there. Obviously Hannah and Paul. Paul's mum and dad were there. I came up in the lift, and Matthew was waiting for me. And the first thing I said is, can I see her? And he wouldn't look at me. And I thought, why aren't you looking at me? Why don't you answer me? And the first person I saw after that was my husband. He was waiting in a room to see me because he said to my son, he wanted to tell me that she had died 10 minutes before.
Maisie had just passed away.
I then went to see Hannah and Paul and Maisie. At that point, she'd been taken off the machines. You can't speak. You just sort of, you can't understand what's happened. And Matthew said, one thing he can remember, Paul went down to get a cigarette, and Hannah, the nurse, said, I'm going to take all the wires off her and everything, because the doctors kept trying to bring her back. They said to Hannah and Paul, I'm sorry, but this isn't doing her heart any good. We will bring her back one more time for you to say goodbye. And Matthew said, they said goodbye. Paul went out to have a cigarette. Hannah helped the nurse take the wires off. That's what Matthew was astounded. But she washed Maisie, and then when I brought the things in, she dressed Maisie. But she said to the nurse, am I allowed to wash her as well? Which she did.
Obviously really important for her as her mum to be able to do that. She
gave Maisie to me. I was holding her. And one picture I've got in my mind, and I'll never forget that, and I never say it to Hannah, she walked around the room, waving her, moving her hands, you know, in the gesture of, she says, what do I do now with these? Because for 8 months, all I've done is look after Maisie. And she said, I don't know what to do with my hands. It was devastating.
Up until that point, Mary, Maisie had been quite a healthy little girl.
She was a very healthy little girl. When she was born, she was 5 weeks early. She was absolutely fine. There was nothing wrong with her. She didn't have to incubate or anything. She was only £5, tiny little thing. She was lovely. Just as she was about to leave hospital the next day, she had jaundice. So she had to stay in till the Sunday night. And just as she was about to leave the Sunday night, she got strep B. Now, Hannah's spoken to doctors. That had nothing to do with the fact that she contracted meningitis. But what I don't understand, what we think of, is while she was at that hospital, they took her to the hospital where she was born 8 months before. If they brought down her notes, you would hope that they would have looked at them and said, we better keep an eye, because she was a bit early. She had strep B, she had jaundice. Should we hang on to her? And that's what I feel.
You're not convinced that the patient records for Maisie were looked at and taken into consideration?
Yeah. Yes, that's something that my husband and I do discuss between ourselves, that they didn't keep her in longer. Hannah and Paul got a letter from the hospital saying that they acknowledged the fact that Maisie had passed away, because that was the first hospital she went to. So Hannah wrote to the hospital. She was advised to write to the hospital and say she'd passed away. And the one sentence that stands out is, everyone involved was interviewed with representation. Now, I just find that meant their union, that meant we're looking after them. They should have left that out. They should have said everybody was interviewed. But the fact that they said with representation, I found that very harsh.
So they launched an inquiry of some kind?
Yes.
After Maisie passed away?
Yeah. I went back to Whipps Cross Hospital to say, because they looked after her and they were absolutely fantastic. I saw the nurse who was with us till 8 o'clock that evening, and I said to her, will you inform the first hospital? And she said, oh yes, it's the first thing we do. So they informed the first hospital. We never heard from the first hospital again. Hannah decided not to pursue anything. She wanted to draw a line. When we left the Great Ormond Street, Howard and I took the death certificate, and we were advised to, if we not do it in the borough where Hannah lives, but if we do it at Camden, where Great Ormond Street comes under, it would be done quickly. The moment we hit that, we came home with that in our hand from saying goodbye to Maisie. I phoned and I said, what happened? And she said, how old was the person you want to register? And I said 8 months old. She said appointment at 11 o'clock tomorrow. So it was done extremely quickly. The first couple of days were a complete, you're walking around, but nobody else is around you, if you understand what I mean. Yeah. You're sort of getting in the car, you're going up to Hannah, you're hundreds of phone calls going backwards and forwards, people were finding out. As the week went by, we all started to hurt. Hannah and Paul were in absolute bits.
Completely understandable.
Yeah, absolute bits. And your life doesn't change in as much as you're still the same person, but in your mind and in your heart is completely changed. This is the overriding thing in your life. You just don't know what to do. And then of course there's a funeral to get ready. And my brother, Hannah's uncle, he went straight round to the undertakers and sorted out things like that. And the undertakers were so kind. They didn't charge for the funeral. They only charged for the cars. They said no, they don't charge for children. And the funeral was, there again, it was like you're on a stage, a set.
The shock lasts for quite some
Oh,
time.
gosh.
It's not a 24 or 48-hour
No.
thing.
We arrived at Hannah and Paul's. The hearse came round, the cars came round. We got to the cemetery, and I'm not exaggerating, for a little tiny baby like that, must have been 150 people there. People who'd never even met her yet. There was only standing room.
Because it's not what should happen.
No. And people were so amazing. People that didn't meet him, Paul's football friends, he just put out that Maisie, all the football guys were there, all my friends were there, and Howard's friends, and Mary, that's Paul's mum, and Trevor, their friends were all there, and it was just standing room. And my friend said that even men were looking for tissues.
Beautiful but heartbreaking by the sounds
and
of it.
it was just, I don't know. It's still, and then it hits you when all the functions had to be gone through, the funeral and everything.
And the funeral's often the point, I think, where people think there'll be some degree of closure, or you might feel finality, you might get slightly better somehow after that. But it's actually quite an anticlimax, isn't it?
It is, and then you wake up the day after the funeral, and I went back to work because I was working at that time on the Monday. The funeral was on the Friday. That did help. My husband went back to work. Hannah and Paul didn't go back to work for a while. But then it hits you. You realise that life isn't the same. For me, for Howard, but for Hannah and Paul, the hole in their heart will never be filled.
No, there's a person missing, and she always will be missing.
Yeah, and she's always there with us. We make a fuss of her. We've got 3 other grandchildren. They get Christmas presents and birthday presents, but so does Maisie. We give it to the charity that I'm the ambassador.
Was Maisie your first grandchild?
No, she was our third. Hannah and Paul had a boy, another baby, a year later. Maisie died in the October. The following November, Ronnie was born. Maisie would be 17 now, and Ronnie's coming up 16. You just sort of live with it, and then you find things around the house. She had like a little hat, a little baby grow, and then the shawl she came home in, which Hannah and Matthew had come home in, things like that. You pick them up. I remember saying to Hannah quite a while after, maybe a year, 2 years, I said to her, "Do you think of Maisie often?" She says, "I think of her all the time." And you can believe that. And with us, we think of her, and we go and we put flowers at a little place where a little body went in, she was cremated. Often we'd go up and there'd be something there. For a long while, children that were born the same time as Hannah, as they were growing up, at the same time as Maisie, sorry, they were growing up, they would put things on the little stone.
It's a lovely way of including her, isn't it?
Yeah, and as I say, she gets birthday and Christmas present, but she actually gets more than the other 3 she does. We send it all to
I'm
the
sure
charity.
they don't begrudge her.
Oh yeah, and we send it to the charity.
Yeah,
that's how we help.
It has a huge, like you say, Maisie would be 17 now.
Yes.
But this experience with meningitis has shaped all of your lives, hasn't it, in different ways?
Yeah. My son's daughter was born December, as Maisie was born the February after, so they're the same age.
Would have grown up together.
They would have grown up together, although they lived not too near, but they would have been friends, I'd say. And I said to my granddaughter, I said to her, "You and Maisie would have been friends." She went, "Oh yes." They know her. So Ronnie knows everything about her, but never met her, but he knows. Yeah, we talk about her. And one thing, all the heartache that my daughter went through, and Paul, if you talk about Maisie, she will smile. That is the thing that amazes me.
But that in itself is amazing
Yeah.
strength, isn't it?
Oh yes, yeah. And she had amazing friends, absolutely amazing friends. When Maisie was born, she was tiny, and she met 12 other girls. When she went to the clinic that day, they all looked at Maisie because they laid all their babies on the floor, and somebody said, put her in the middle. They put Maisie in the middle with all these babies around her, and she looked like their doll.
Like a baby sunflower.
Yeah, she was like the doll. She was tiny. Well, when Maisie passed away on the Thursday, on the Friday, there was a knock at the door. One of the girls was there with a silver gift box, and in that silver gift box was 12 letters, and they were cards and letters. Some just put a card, some wrote poems, some wrote letters, and they were just there for Hannah and Paul. And there was flowers everywhere in our house and Hannah's house, but the girls sent a big box of every single chocolate bar you could think of.
That's what we all need in times of trouble. It's good friendship, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm still friends with a lot of them.
That's good. But for you, this really started a mission,
Oh,
didn't it,
yeah.
of awareness raising?
Well, it must have been a year, 18 months, a year. I remember coming home from the hospital when Maisie passed away. We were given no information at the hospital. I will say that. There's one failing I found with Great Ormond Street. Everything else was fantastic. And Paul looked up one charity, his charity came up. So they, for a little while, were with another charity for men. But I looked up and Meningitis Now came up. I didn't phone them then. I didn't phone them. I sent a cheque because we collected quite a lot of money, quite a few £1,000 from everybody. And I said, we'll send that to that charity. But then a year later, I actually phoned them and said, can I help? So I met 3 people. 2 people were from solicitors actually, were there just to talk to me, and 1 volunteer, because their headquarters is up in Gloucester, and these people around London. And they explained the charity and everything. And my first assignment was to go to North London to a university and give out symptoms cards. And that's what I did for a long while. Went to universities and gave out symptoms cards. I've now been doing it 16 years, 15, 16 years, and I've done so many things, so many different things. I make awareness. Other volunteers, they raise money. Other volunteers go and speak to people or help people that way, speak to families. I do awareness, and I've spoken to banks. I've spoken to so many.
You've done a lot of community events, and that's where we met, isn't it?
Yes, it was. We met at one. My thing at that event was keep safe, and it was for the older person. When I say older, over 60s, it was making people aware of what was out there for them. And I asked if I could speak or have a stall, and they said, what for? So I said, to make awareness that meningitis affects any age, not just 8 months, 80, any age, and that there's a difference between viral and bacterial meningitis. I've been to Parliament, speaking to MPs. I represent Meningitis Now at lots of events. I've been to Buckingham Palace, St James's Palace. I've been to different companies. They may be presenting us with a cheque, so they always like somebody to go and collect it. So if it's around the London area, I go.
You've given a huge amount.
Yeah, sometimes when people ask me what do I do, and I sort of go, and then I go home and think, oh, I forgot I did that. I've spoken to fostering society. I've actually given a talk at solicitors, 2 solicitors I've given talks to, and there were doctors there as well, making awareness. One of the doctors, as he was leaving, he said, "I've got to leave now, I can't stay for the afternoon." He said, "But I'd love to listen to what more than what you've got to say." And I think, you shouldn't be asking me. You should know this.
But you are the expert
Yeah.
in the lived experience.
In the lived experience, yeah. I think maybe, but to give the doctor, GP especially, can go through their whole medical life, not seeing a case of meningitis, but out there are so many people out there affected by it. So many people affected by it. And it's so important that they're recognised, that the families are recognised. I want people out there to know and to get the vaccine. You've only got to say hello to me at the bus stop and I'll work around it somehow. I remember sitting at the gym talking to one of the girls, said to me, "Mary, come and tell me what's happened to your granddaughter. You've been up to Parliament." And as I was talking about the vaccine, a girl further down said, "I'm very sorry for interrupting." She said, "But I've listened to your conversation." So I said, "Oh, I don't mind, that's fine." So she said, "No," she said, "I don't believe in vaccinations." She said, I'm very wary of them, but I'm going to go and get my children vaccinated now." So just doing that,
you're having an impact.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do, because there's a lack of vaccination, people taking up vaccinations at the moment, which has happened especially since COVID. Meningitis is within vaccinations within school. My grandson, he's 15 now, but when he was 14, just a little while ago, they were doing the meningitis jabs. So everyone was bringing in the paper, and one of the boys said, "I haven't brought my paper back." His friend actually. And he said, "No, my mum doesn't want me to have the vaccination." So Ronnie said, he's just an ordinary 14-year-old, right? He said, "Oh, well, I'll come and see your mum." So we went home with him. So I said, "Did you know this woman?" He said, "Met her a couple of times." "What did you say?" And I said, "You ought to have the vaccination." And she said, which I think maybe a young boy speaking to an adult, she said, "So you're a doctor?" And he said, "No, but my sister died of meningitis." And she said, "Was that baby that died all those years ago?" And Ronnie said, "Yes, that was Maisie." She went, "Give me the paper." Now, isn't that amazing? That a young boy could change. So that is a big one, that the vaccinations must be taken up.
Every life counts, doesn't it?
Yes. I just don't, if you just see the stories of people that are affected by it, from children. I'm speaking to a new volunteer, a child had it at a day old. And you speak to people whose grandparents have had it.
And as you said, people generally think it's a young person.
Yes, especially
child.
Yeah,
illness.
Children and university. Yeah, but one of the girls, she's a friend now, because we got about 168 volunteers and about 38 of them are ambassadors. I spoke to a man, we see them especially at the marathon. He's lost both legs. Imagine the immense change in their lives. Physically, their life is completely turned upside down. Emotionally, our family were affected, very much so. All those families are affected emotionally, but some of them are affected physically. Not just the person who's lost the limbs, but their family, the children. It's devastating. And the more that people know about it,
it's an important job to do. What you said about Maisie, the symptoms that she had were very non-specific, weren't they?
Yeah.
It was more down to parental instinct that something wasn't right?
Yes. The symptoms for viral and bacterial are very much the same, very much the same, apart from the rash.
And that's the symptom everyone, I think, automatically thinks of with meningitis.
Now, the important thing, and the one thing I make awareness for, it is not the first thing you look for, because as I've just stated, you do not get rash and viral meningitis. Bacterial meningitis, you can get it. Maisie, towards the last few hours of her life, had a few spots on her arm. I remember the spots there, and a few on her stomach. That was practically 24 hours. She woke up at 6 o'clock that morning and she passed away at 10:30 the next morning. So 24 hours, just
very quick.
The rash is not the first thing you look for. Maisie's rash only came at the last few hours and it was only a few spots. I sat with a woman talking to her about her son's meningitis, and within an hour, a rash came up. Within 3 hours, his whole leg was a rash. What causes the rash is blood poisoning, septicemia. With viral meningitis, you do not get blood poisoning, and that is why you will not get a rash. The symptoms generally are, they don't come in order, and you may not get them all. Stiff neck, dislike of bright lights, fever but cold hands and feet, vomiting, irritability, severe headache, drowsy, difficult to wake up, convulsions and seizures, pale blotchy skin and a rash, severe muscle pain. You could get those in both viral and bacterial meningitis apart from the rash. The dislike of bright lights, to me, is a very good indicator. You go in to see a child of a morning, you pull back the curtain, but it is a complete reaction, a bad reaction, a different reaction. Fever and cold hands, that might be the start of the septicemia coming in. Irritability, now Maisie was irritable more than anything, not necessarily drowsy, but it was the fact that she was irritable and she didn't want to eat her bottle. Stiff neck, ask the person if they've got a stiff neck and ask them to put their nose on their knee. That's an indicator. Severe muscle pain. Sometimes meningitis can take 24 hours, even 2 days to come through. So these are things that would come up. Other times, just like that. I spoke to a gentleman the other day who, his nephew, went to bed and never woke up. Meningitis had affected him. A boy came up to me, actually he was a man, he was a caretaker, where I was having a stall in a school. He said, I had meningitis when I was young. He said, the doctor was looking in my ear with a light, and it was another doctor who walked past that noticed that every time the light went near his eye, he really reacted. It would come with a headache, with a severe headache, because if we have severe headaches, we don't like the light. See, all these symptoms, you could say to me, like the stiff neck, not liking bright lights, irritability, drowsiness, being sick, could be flu.
Or a migraine.
Or a migraine. Yes, it could be flu, which can be dangerous as well. I say to university students, look, you go to see a friend. I don't want to get up. Exactly. You've been out with them the night before, so got a hangover. Let's hope it is a hangover. But what you do is after your tutorial, you go back. If he's exactly the same, just phone a doctor and say he's the same. If he's worse, you definitely phone. If you are really worried and there's a rash there, you phone an ambulance. Never be afraid. Never, ever be afraid. Phone an ambulance or a doctor.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, because you just don't want it to happen to you. Children, babies. Now, babies, the bulging fontanella is something that, an unusual cry or moaning, and there is a difference. A nurse was explaining it to me. Rapid breathing and grunting, fretful, dislike of being held, and if it's a child, phone an ambulance. The unusual cry, the nurse was explaining to me that she was running through A&E one day to get to a different department, and she heard a child cry who was waiting to be seen, and she called a nurse and she said, can you see to this baby straight away? I think there's something serious, and it was meningitis. It's the,
It's instinct again, isn't it?
yeah, it's instinct, a mother's instinct. And that's what, with Hannah and Paul, the instinct that there was something wrong. And they did the right thing. And I do believe if she had antibiotics earlier, she may still be with us, because she didn't have the rest, she wouldn't have had the septicemia. It's hard.
Absolutely.
But it's the devastation, and it always stays with you. Hannah and Paul did separate. It affected the family to the extent that I think Paul couldn't cope. Men cope or don't cope differently to women. And as I say, Hannah's friends came round with letters. I'm sure Paul's friends were very sympathetic, believe me. They were all there at the funeral. They were amazing, these young men. But they don't talk like women. They don't say the same things. And Ronnie was 3, so it was 4 years then since May, and he said that he was leaving because he was unhappy. So Hannah said, "How long have you been unhappy?" And he said, 4 years. And I do honestly believe that he didn't realise it was, connected with. I even spoke to his sisters, because they're all amazing families. We're still all friends. I said to the sisters, "He needs counselling." They said that first, they keep saying to him, so he didn't cope. They separated, but he's still there. He's around the corner. Ronnie's now 15. Hannah recently got married again, and Paul was at the wedding with his fiancée. So
it's just such a huge event. How do you move forward from that?
And so we're still all friends in that way. Paul's around the corner, Ronnie's there, and his mum takes her ex-mother-in-law, or she calls her my mother-in-law still, takes her out for lunch. If I bump into the sisters, we're all friends, because we've got the one common denominator, Maisie. It's amazing. She was amazing.
And she still is.
Oh,
and the work that you're doing in her name is absolutely amazing every day.
Yeah. And the people I meet as well. I was speaking to 2 people yesterday. We were organising something. The couple, they lost their daughter when she was 20, and that was only 2 years ago. And they're still, but they've thrown themselves into the work. The other young girl that is there, she's doing all she can, because her brother's fiancé died. So it wasn't her family, but it affected them badly, because it was their son's fiancé. I go every year to the ambassadors meeting, and there's always 30 of us there, and we've all been through the same, and not all of them died, but lots of them survived. You could just see that their lives, they're different. We're different. We're different, and we fight for that one thing.
It's what we say to so many people that speak to us. You've turned that pain, that awful pain, into real purpose, and you're doing good out there in the community for others, all in Maisie's name.
Yeah. I found the baby grow she was wearing, because they cut it. The nurse went to put it, just lay it down, and I said, "I'll have that." And I found it in a drawer the other day, and I forgot it was there. And I don't go to that drawer often, it's in another. And I find it, and I look at it, and I think,
you're back there like it was yesterday.
Yeah. The only thing I regret was I didn't realise that my camera took videos at the time, and I haven't got a video of her. I've got photos, and then you think, "Oh, why didn't I spend more time with her? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that?"
I don't think you can have any loss without regret, Mary.
And you just think, "Oh, I should have done that every week. I should have seen her more than once a week. I should have seen her every day." But
can't change the past.
No. And
I'm sure you were an absolutely amazing grandmother.
Yeah. I met one family, and it was only the year before their daughter had died, but she had 3 older siblings, 2 older siblings and the younger, so they were all teenagers. And I sat opposite them, and I honestly, agony in their faces was unbelievable. And I thought, they didn't seem to be able to, they were just going through motions. Then we were like that. Well, we still are in certain things. You don't know what to do, but I'm doing that.
I think everyone's path is unique.
It's different, yeah. I'm sure, because one of my friends, if I mention Maisie in a, like, what you're doing this weekend, I think, I've got to do this for meningitis, she will practically be in tears. Just at the thought of it. And that's all that years ago. And then other people, like my friend, said, are you really? Oh, you're great. And she sort of smiles and she said, you're doing that. Oh, great. Her daughter's done a lot for us. She's run a marathon. She's done a tea party. She's had a quiz. Even friends.
It's a way that people can contribute, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's lovely. Mary, that's been a hugely moving story. Thank you so much for sharing with us and for your own bravery and resilience. I'm just going to throw you one more curveball. We always end a podcast by asking our guests, what would the title of your life story be?
Title of my life story? I suppose I've had, up until then, I've had a very good life. I did, no early deaths in the family, no major illnesses, and grandparents died.
Lived a good age.
Yeah. So I don't know. I suppose it's that's a big knock I've had. But I've got to say, I'd be lost now without Meningitis Now. All the things I get, all the gifts I get, I get invited to certain places. But I'm saying I'm going to this dinner and dance or something, or I'm going to do this. I've been to a drinks party at this bank. I'm forgetting that I'm doing it to represent meningitis. And
also Maisie, you're representing her wherever you go.
Yeah. So I forget that what I'm doing is I'm not being given. Like I went last year and this year. It was amazing. In Pall Mall, there's the art gallery along the Mall, and it's the Society of Women Artists have an exhibition every year. And when it closes at 6 o'clock, one night it's open for us, Meningitis Now, and it's drinks and canapes. See all the exhibition free. Some of the artists are there. We meet all different people, and I'm thinking of this as a gift for what I've done. I'm forgetting that really what I'm doing is I'm representing Maisie, and I went to a bingo night. It was absolutely amazing. These guys, but every penny that they would charge the people coming in went to Meningitis Now. So I went on a bingo night. But I'm forgetting that why I went was to represent.
Do you know what? If I was going to write your story, I think I'd call it Maisie's message.
Yes, it is. Maisie's message.
It's just become inherently part of you, hasn't
it?
It's just the meningitis message.
Yeah, I would be lost without it now, going out there and telling people.
And they without you, I think, Mary. Thank you, Mary. It's been amazing, as I said, speaking to you today.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.